Let me now refer to questions. Questions have traditionally been defined as the grammatical inversion of terms to elicit information or request confirmation of information from the interlocutor. However, with regard to syntactic form, in the case of the spoken language, and in particular conversation, questions can be first classified according to whether they take an interrogative or a declarative form. Declarative questions are relatively common in conversation compared to other registers, and they comprise roughly 10% of all the question forms that you can find in conversation. They function primarily as requests for confirmation. For example, you married? Questions with subject-object inversion, that is to say, those that are interrogative rather than declarative in form, can be further subdivided into those that are fully independent clauses, as in the example, have you been there lately? And those that are elliptic, that is, that a part of these questions is omitted, such as have you. Since conversation is interactive, dialogic and jointly constructed, it depends to a large part on questions to maintain its momentum and purpose. A coherent conversation will certainly contain a high proportion of questions. The second feature of the grammar of conversation that I would like to refer to in this section of the class is tense and aspect. The way tense and aspect are used in conversation generally parallels their uses in other registers. That is, tense is used as a grammatical marker of time, while aspect serves to distinguish between verbal situations that are seen as in progress or not, or complete or not. However, there are important differences in the frequency and distribution of these forms, differences that reflect both the here and now nature of conversation as well as its largely interpersonal function. So how are these tense and aspect, how are these features used in conversation? Well, the present tense is by far the most common tense in casual conversation, outnumbering past tense forms by roughly 4-to-1. So every time there's a simple past form, a past form in conversation, there will be 3 present tense forms. Also, the perfect aspect is far less frequent than simple forms in conversation, and the progressive aspect is uncommon in conversation. Note that simple forms outnumber progressive forms roughly 2-to-1. So every time there is a progressive aspect, there will be 2 simple tenses. Let's do a task now. Listen to this extract of conversation and identify as many questions as you can. As you're listening, try identifying an utterance that contains a tense that is not in the present or an aspect that is not simple. By the end of the task, reflect. What is the proportion of questions? What is the proportion of present simple utterances?
Is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Now that you've done the task, which might have been quite surprising in the number of questions that you could recognize, and probably the very few instances of tenses that are not in the present, or aspects that are not in the simple, let us pass on to modality. Modality is another area of grammar that is best understood by taking into account the interpersonal features of its contexts of use. Modality, very broadly, is concerned with the way speakers indicate their attitudes or judgments with regard to the message in hand. This might be the reason why many linguists say that through modality we express emotion. Within a systemic functional framework, modality is a dimension of the mood system of language, which can be broadly defined as the grammatical system that is centrally concerned with the expression of interpersonal meaning. Conversation is largely interpersonal in its function, so modality is then strongly associated with the expression of interpersonal meaning in conversation. Among other findings that researchers have observed in corpus data in conversation, we note the following. The modal verbs can, will, and would are extremely common in conversation, as well as the semi-modals have to, used to, and going to. Also, modals such as may, shall, and must are relatively infrequent in conversational data. And must is very often used to mark logical necessity, but infrequently found in the data to show other meanings. Finally, let us pass on to reporting as the last feature that we would like to highlight in the grammar of conversation in this class. Reporting is a feature of the grammar of conversation which involves the use of verbs referring to the speech behavior of participants in conversation in order to frame what is being said. Examples of this are, I was telling Joe that, and then he says to me. There is a predominance of direct reporting over indirect reporting in conversation. Indirect speech reports seem to be reserved for very short narratives of non-humorous type in conversation, while reporting verbs are not usually marked for aspect in written registers. It is very common in conversational data to find such verbs in the continuous form. This operates as an extension of the framing function of the continuous aspect at the orientation stage of narratives. For example, as I was telling you, that would be an example. Let us now watch another extract of conversation, and let's identify examples of reporting as well as examples of modality. What do you recognize? What type of examples are they? Why are these two features used? Is there an expression of attitude through modality? Which attitudes? Why are the speakers reporting? Are they narrating something?
Niobe.
Do I know you?
You know me, though you may not recognize me.
Are you telling me that you are the Oracle?
I know this won't be easy for any of you. Change never is. I wish the face you remember was the face I was still wearing. But that face is gone.
If you are the Oracle, tell me if I believe you are.
You don't right now, but you will.
Are you going to tell me something to make me believe you?
Come on, Niobe, you know I can't do that.
Why not?
Because I can't make you do anything.
At least you sound the same.
As I said, you may not recognize the face, but who and what I am beneath remains the same.
Can I ask what happened?
The Merovingian warned me that if I made a certain choice, it would cost me. He is, among other things, a man of his word.
What was the choice?
The same one you yourself will have to make. The choice to help Neo or not.
Then Neo is alive.
Yes. He touched the source and separated his mind from his body. Now he lies trapped in a place between your world and ours.
Can we free him?
Trinity can. But she will have to fight her way through hell to do it.
Can I help?
That's why I called. I cannot tell you what is going to happen. All I can do is hope that if you are given the chance, you will find the courage to do what you can.
You once told me you knew everything you needed to.
I do. I knew everything from the beginning of this path to the end.
I don't understand.
Even I can't see beyond the end.
The end. Are you trying to tell me the world is going to end?
Yes. If we cannot save it, it will end.
You mean Neo?
I mean we. The path of the one is made by the many. I have a role to play, just as you have yours.
It is time.
You must go now.
Wait. I need more information. How will I know what to do?
There's an old Chinese proverb I've always liked. The heart never speaks, but you must listen to it to know. You'll know, Niobe. You always do.
To conclude, let me say that in this class we have covered the main features of the grammar of conversation. Through all these features, heads and tails, grammatical incompletion, ellipses, deixis, questions, tense and aspect, modality, and reporting, we come to realize that the grammar of conversation is by no means a simple one.